Hey guys and girls, my name is Alan and welcome to this gameplay commentary. So this video is part 2 of my first impressions of Mass Effect Andromeda multiplayer. Part 1 will be linked in the description. I'll also link it on the screen now. And basically in that first part I did talk about various topics, and today I'm just going to continue talking about different topics. As I said, my first impressions of Andromeda multiplayer. Early thoughts: obviously the game's only been out, well, saying that the game's been out for over a month now, nearly coming up to 2 months, so not that new really if you think about it. But anyway, so first off, I'm going to talk about the Apex rating. Now, when they introduced challenges and challenge points in ME3, I thought they were really stupid that they put the score on the screen, because completing a lot of challenges doesn't make you a good player. Not completing a lot of challenges doesn't necessarily make you a bad player, it just means you don't care about challenges. And so having that on the screen for everyone to see, and to not necessarily, well, unfortunately a lot of people did judge you by it, was I think really stupid. I played quite a lot of ME3s, so my challenge score was quite high. I didn't really go out my way to complete challenges, but it was still pretty decent. And if I'd have continued, if I'd have made an effort to work on them, I could have got even higher. But obviously I said I don't really care about the challenges, so I was happy with what I got. But it was still quite high, even though I just played the game, regularly without having to really work on anything in particular. Now the Apex rating has replaced the challenge points rating on the main screen. They still maintain, well, they still track the challenge points, but they don't show it on the screen. They show the Apex rating instead. Now, I think the Apex rating is possibly even worse than the challenge point rating to have on the front screen. I'll be honest with you, I don't fully understand how the Apex rating is put together, but I know that a lot of it, or part of it, is formed from opening packs from the pack store. Now, I haven't opened that many packs, at least I don't think I have, and I certainly haven't played that much of this game, and yet I've hit over 5k in terms of Apex rating. I don't even know how I managed to get to that point. Like, it seems to jump like 1,000 every time I do a pack opening, which is quite a lot just for opening packs. Now, one of the drawbacks of this, obviously, is that if someone's throwing a lot of money at this game, into the store, they can get a ridiculously high Apex rating. Doesn't mean they're a good player. It just means they've got a lot of money to throw around. So, as in terms of useless information, the Apex rating is pretty much right up there. I don't really understand why it's there, to be honest. At least someone who works on challenges can say, well, I've spent a lot of time in the game, killing enemies and using, weapons, a variety of them, because you can't just do it, well, you can do it with one weapon, but it gets really boring. You don't earn nearly as many points as if you worked on a lot of different weapons to earn the overall category challenges. So yeah, I think it's possibly even worse than the challenge point rating, so I don't really understand what the hell is going on there. And again, just like challenge point ratings, unfortunately people do judge you by it, and I mean, as I said, mine's quite high, so I don't get a lot of bother. But some people with low challenge point ratings and low Apex ratings, they get a lot of, not necessarily a lot of stick, but they get those like odd comments or whatever, and it's just, I don't know, it's just really bad, and I don't really approve of the system whatsoever. But I try not to judge people about it, but because it's just in your face, you sort of think about it as you're playing with these players, and it's not something that I'm proud of admitting to, but because it is there, you do think about it. And unfortunately, if I could turn it off, I would do, but that's just the way it is. Right, enough about that. Let's move on to the next point. So Apex missions have effectively, at this point, as far as I can tell, replaced community challenges. Community challenges, if you didn't play ME3, were weekend events. They took place, I think, was it once every either 2 weeks or a month, I can't remember. But basically, the devs or whoever's in charge of the multiplayer side of the game would set like a challenge for the community. I don't know what the fuck's going on here, by the way. My body just glitches out, and this is, I guess, this is another point that I can talk about the game, is it's full of bugs and glitches like this. I don't know what this is. I'll probably upload it as a separate video, but it's sort of a weird body glitch, and I can't turn around. I can't do anything at this point. All I can do is what you can see on the screen, that I can move around, but I can only look in one direction. It's happened to me a couple of times now, and I figured out that if you jump and spin at the same time, you can actually turn to face a different direction, but you'll still be trapped in this only facing forward sort of view. And until something happens, which will happen in a minute, it doesn't reset this glitch, this bug, whatever this problem is. So really annoying, and I don't know how, I wasn't even doing anything, I don't think. I went over to the ammo box, and then suddenly that was it, I was glitched. Anyway, so the devs would set like a challenge. So they'd say, kill 5,000 of these X enemies, or extract X Y number of times from this map. And over the course of a weekend, I think that's how long it was, everyone would just play these matches, not necessarily go out the way to complete the challenges. Some people did kind of grind them out, but they would just play the matches and try and work on this community goal. And if everyone, well, not necessarily everyone, but if the goal was met, then everybody would get like a reward crate, I think. And in ME3, I believe it was I can't remember what it's called now. Anyway, they gave you a special crate, and the crates usually contained at least one ultra rare weapon. And I know that the categories were slightly different back then, because the weapons that they gave in those crates weren't in full rotation. I think they're called community weapons, or I can't remember what it's called. But the point is, you're guaranteed to get one of these ultra rare weapons from the crates, and that was fun. That was something, that was nice to work towards. And as I said, some people really grinded them out, really wanted to help the community to earn these crates, and they were fun. Sometimes if the mission was like extracts from a certain map on gold, for example, you'd be a bit more lenient in helping other players to do so, because you wanted to work towards that. But overall, it was just it brought the community to sort of together to work on these challenges, and it was fun. You didn't really have to go your way to do anything. And they've replaced it with these Apex missions, which, to be honest, just don't fill me anyway with the same sense of community. In a lot of cases, you get the mission done, and then that's it. It's finished. You don't care whether someone else has done it or not, because you've got your reward, and that's it. It's done and dusted. And to be honest, I kind of, I've been in that situation where I've completed the Apex mission. It was a really crappy one, such as, enemies do 1,000 times more melee damage, or you can't get revived. And I can't be bothered playing those sort of matches more than once, especially with pubs where the players aren't particularly good anyway, and obviously there's a lot of problems with this game, so why would I put myself through that effort of having to go through that again more than once? So yeah, and then also another thing as well is that some players don't even bother with the Apex missions. They just send out a strike team. I've done a video explaining about strike teams and strike Apex missions in a separate video. I'll probably link it, as I said, in the description and on the screen. So if you want more information about those, check it out. But basically, you don't even have to do these Apex missions. So you could technically not even bother with any of these community, inverted commas, events whatsoever. But you could just send out a strike team and they'll do it for you. And you don't even have to worry about these challenges. So yeah, it's not a good replacement, if it is a replacement. I mean, they could still bring back community challenges, I suppose. But there's so much other stuff they need to work on beforehand, before that. Well, I hope they work on other stuff before they start concentrating on smaller things like that. Continuing on from Apex missions, I suppose, is maps. Now, when the game first launched, well, I guess at the moment there's still only 5 maps really in rotation, which is, it's not a lot, to be honest with you. And I know they can add new maps as part of DLC, and they are starting to do that. But it feels, as I said in a very early video, it feels like they're holding back content just for the purposes of releasing it as, quote, DLC, end quote, which is a really bad way of doing it. Like, yeah, I mean, obviously it's a practice that they use in a lot of games as well, to try and increase the amount of stuff that they add to the game, post launch. But it's clearly, in this case, it's something that they've done on purpose, in my opinion. And the maps that they've got in full rotation at the moment, there's only 5 of them, and they're not very good maps anyway. So I think they should be adding the other maps into rotation a lot sooner than what they're planning to do. And by having them just for the purposes of Apex missions, those weekends or whatever, I don't think it's good enough at this point. I really don't. And there's just a lack of variety, and as I said, a lot of the maps aren't very fun anyway, so there's not too much drawing me back into this game at the moment. I have taken sort of a break from playing the game. I don't find it that fun. I don't find it that interesting. Only a handful of characters and weapons, in my opinion, are fun to use, are viable across all difficulties, including gold, which is kind of where I want to play, but I'm not having fun playing it, I mean, I'm not struggling with the game or anything, but it's just not fun. And if a game's not fun, why are you playing it, so that's just how I feel at the moment. And so yeah, I don't know, I'm hoping a lot more stuff is coming out soon, and a lot of changes are coming soon, but it's just not. And the lack of communication from the devs is a little bit worrying, to be quite honest. Whether because they're hard at work trying to get these things sorted, or whether they're just point blank ignoring it all, I don't know. It's time will tell, but I'm not a very patient man, especially when I paid full price for a game and I expect it to be decent from at least, day 1 or week 1 or whatever, not bloody 2 months, 3 months after the game's come out. In the same sort of vein, I suppose I could talk about factions. The factions, I'm not a fan. I think in ME3, each faction was clearly different, and each one had its characters, which really, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I just like. Let's just take the dogs for example. They're in both factions, the Ket and in the Outlaw factions. that doesn't make them unique. That just makes them annoying across two different factions now. The Geth in ME3, obviously they were a robot faction, so certain powers, certain characters would really shine against them. Yeah, in some ways the Remnant, you can have some sort of characters, but because the weapons and the powers are kind of weak anyway, you don't really notice that much of a difference. So again, it doesn't feel like you're playing a different faction, it just feels like it's the same old, same old. I guess the bosses are kind of different. I mean, the Ket Ascendant is a pain in the ass, but at least he's unique, right? You're not going to find another character like him across multiplayer. But then you've got the Remnant Destroyer, and then you've got the Hydra from Outlaws, and they're both big giant robots, and they're kind of similar, you know. I mean, they might attack a bit different, but essentially they're two big giant robots. So again, there's not a lot of difference there. I mean, the Atlas in ME3 was inherently different from the Geth Prime, yeah, from the Geth faction, and again, you don't get that sort of sense in this game at the moment. So maybe, I don't know, I don't know, it feels like you play one faction but it's not too dissimilar from another faction, and so they all sort of merge together, and it adds to the mundaneness, adds to the boringness, you know. And yeah, I guess they could add different stuff as DLC comes out, but as I said just a little bit earlier, it shouldn't take DLCs and stuff for a game to be fun, to be good from day one. That's just not how it should be. Speaking of adding stuff via DLC, they have started to add more objectives as well. Again, they call these new objectives, but they weren't ME3, so they should really be in MEA from the start and then added different ones, but they've held them back. So most recently they've brought back is the retrieve objects. Now you can actually run, so they've kind of made a few modifications here and there, but again, this featured in ME3, so it's not really new, and it should be here from the start. I imagine at some point they'll bring back the drone escort, and they'll probably, you know, try and call that new or something as well. But you know, they've taken stuff out, kept it behind for DLC. It's not a great tactic, to be honest. Okay, so I'm conscious that this video is running to an end, as to all the videos when I'm talking about stuff like this. So there's a few more things I want to talk about from this list I've got in front of me, and I'll try and run through them as quick as I can because I don't really fancy making a part 3. So again, going on from the lack of variety, in ME3 every character, well, every race had its own sort of melee type. So the Krogan had the running charge with the backhand slap, the Krogan headbutt. The Krogan headbutt's still there, but the running slap is gone. Asari had, obviously the Biotic punch is still there, but they don't have that AoE sort of, you know, jumping into the air and exploding all over people. You know the one I'm trying to talk about. And characters like the Vulture, I guess they could come back as DLC. The Turian, they no longer beat people around the head with their weapon. Just stuff like that, it's been taken out, right? And it's just added a bit more characteristics to each of the factions, the races. So I missed that. They've added a lot more new weapons, which is good, but they've bloated the crap out of the pools, and the weapons, as I said, aren't great anyway. So you unlock an ultra rare weapon, there's an 80% chance it's going to be a piece of crap, and so you're so disappointed in getting it that you'd rather have just got something else, but then you realise that the other pools are just as bad, and it's just so disappointing having all these good weapons that, well, having all these weapons that could potentially be good, but they're just not. I mean, I was looking through my ME3 manifest the other day, and there's only about 2 or 3 weapons that I would have been a bit annoyed to have got, but they were still viable on gold, right? But then all the other weapons, a good 90% of them, were absolutely amazing. Cerberus Harrier, Black Widow, Javelin, the list goes on. These are all good weapons, and you would never groan if you got one of these, right? In the gameplay today, I have been using one old face, the Hornet, and one new face, the Zolkin assault rifle. Now, the Hornet wasn't a great weapon in ME3, but it definitely wasn't a bad weapon, and in this gameplay, I mean, you've seen how weak it is, right? And it was never this bad in ME3. It wasn't a great weapon, but I could definitely use it. The Zolkin assault rifle is a burst fire self-regenerating weapon, which on paper should be quite good. I think I've talked about this in another video already, but in this game, well, I mean, this gameplay, this is silver, and it's not very good. Could you imagine it in gold? And I have tried to use it in gold, and it's just bloody awful. So there's just so many weapons like that where they have potential, but they're just not good fun to use, and they're just not damaging enough to use on higher difficulties. Low difficulties, yeah, that's fine, but I mean, you don't really want to judge things on bronze because, you know, everything's meant to be good on bronze. It's meant to be fun difficulty. And the final point, because I know the video's come to an end now, is lack of communication with the devs, or from the devs, I suppose. ME3 was the first game where I actually went onto the official forums, and I even joined in. I posted a few articles here and there, and I also commented on other people's posts and stuff like that. And I've not done that with any other game. I've never felt the need to do it for any other game, but ME3, because the devs were involved with those forums, and they sometimes replied, not often, but sometimes they replied and just tried to engage with the community, and I felt that was quite interesting, which is why I tried to get involved as well. And they completely got rid of the official forums before Andromeda came out, which is a bit bizarre, but yeah, it's done now. So there's not even an official way to talk with these devs, and I don't know, it's just they've made a lot of backwards changes like that, which I don't really understand. But there's a lot about this game that I don't fully comprehend why they've taken several steps back. Anyway, video's come to an end now, and I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. There's no more time anyway. But yeah, let me know in the comment section below if you've got any thoughts you'd like to share with me regarding stuff I've talked about today or the previous video as well. Drop a like if you enjoy the content, I really do appreciate it. And until next time, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, take care, and I will see you later.